Good morning. How morning. Have everybody's attention. Stop the bell.
It's the new bell, yeah.
But just wanted to say one announcement, and then we'll turn it over to Doug and his team. But tomorrow we have a peer group, and Sean is hosting. It's going to be on sales, and I know many of you are in sales, but should be a good discussion. So bright and early in the morning, I think 7 o'clock is when the official start time is, but everybody's online at about 6:30. So with that, we'll just turn it over to Doug and get to see his exciting space.
Well, woo, 1 o'clock. Thank you. Yeah, come on over, Bob. So Bob and I welcome you, and Bob joined our Rotary Club in 03.
That's about right.
And you joined our company in 02. So one of the things I appreciate about Bob is he's a joiner. So he got in our company and started going, and then he heard about me talking about Rotary. He said, "I'm interested. I'd like to go." And so off he came. And then a few years later, he's not a musician, he's a banker by trade. He decided to buy a Steinway. And so he then started taking piano lessons. And it was the joke around the company. Here's the CFO sitting in there. Yeah, on the pre-book one, working his way on his Steinway, and but I appreciate that in him, and that he wanted to embrace what we do. And I've got a picture of that. So first of all, this was the one that Bob didn't want me to put on the Rotary website. Yeah, because the new Bob is the fun Bob, and so this is the new fun Bob. When Bob got into our company executive band, this was in 2014, I believe, and when he was brand new at the piano, but he actually had the guts to sit down and play with us. And that's my brother Tom playing the banjo. That's me on an alto plastic trombone, believe it or not. And you don't know the other two guys, but anyway, so that was kind of a fun start. So I appreciate having Bob here and as part of our Rotary Club, and we have a fun long history. One of the most scary ones was when I was president. He was our money guy in Rotary, whatever the title is, and he came walking into my office and said, "We lost $100,000 out of the foundation." I was just like, "What?" And we went through a little dark period, and anyway, we've recovered. And but anyway, that was just one of our fun little stories from Rotary history. Very fun. Yes. All right, so you can sit down now, Bob. Thank you for that. So I'm going to try to march through 130 years of history in 15 minutes. Believe it or not, this is Paul A. Schmitt. He is my great-grandfather, and yeah, doesn't he look like me? Yes, got good flow. And so his parents immigrated from Staffelstein, Germany. I don't know the year they came in, but it was in the mid 1800s. And this is his wife later in years, and her name coincidentally is Margaret Ellen Schmitt. And my aunt told me just a couple of years ago that our daughter's name is Margaret Ellen Schmitt. She said, "Did you know that Paul A. Schmitt's wife had the exact same name?" And we had no clue. It just came out of nowhere. Anyway, just kind of fun. So this is where Staffelstein, Germany is, right in the middle. And I had to look it up, and it's part of Bavaria. And but like lots of us, we're results of immigration. And so thank goodness that we were able to get here and set up shop, and it was cool. So Paul A. Schmitt started work at Martin's Brothers Music in New York City when he was 12 years old. And he was the third of 4 children. And obviously they all must have had to work. And so off he went. And I don't know anything about his musical background, but by the time he was 22 years old, he had become a printed music expert. And in our business, that's a high honor, because you get phone calls from professional musicians and from brides to be, saying, "I'm looking for Taco Bell's Canon in D." And it's like, oh, geez, and you gotta gently hand it to him. "Here's what you want, honey. This is what you want." But the pro musician will be, more intense. And so he got good enough that he got recognized by G. Schirmer Publishing. And if anybody's a pianist in here, you might recognize this type of cover. This is G. Schirmer's classic look, that kind of gold color with the leaf around it. And they've been around just a hair longer than we have. I think they started in 1861 in New York. But anyway, G. Schirmer got to know Paul A. Schmitt and said, this guy knows his stuff. And one day, Century Piano Company in Minneapolis, back in around 1880s or so, was looking for a new printed music person, an expert. And they called G. Sherman and said, who do you know? And they said, well, there's this guy at Martin's Brothers named Paul Schmitt. He's pretty good. And it would be interesting to see that communication, because who knows how slow it went back then, who knows, maybe by horseback. Anyway, and so I picked this piece on purpose because this is the name of the piece that's on the wall of our old downtown Minneapolis store. It's a Ravel piece called Gaspard de la Nuit. And so anyway, I just picked that out because I knew that would be in their library. So that's part of Paul A. Schmitt. Now, this is a letter that Martin's Brothers wrote recommending him to Century Piano Company. You don't have to read the whole thing, but just look at the beautiful penmanship. And it's just kind of interesting, that, they very graciously said, we will miss him, but we wish him great success. And so it was kind of cool. And so we have these original letters. Now, he worked there for about 6 years, and then there was a recession in 1896, and it hit even our business. And this was from the owners of Century Piano saying, because business is off, we're going to cut everybody's salary who's making more than $20 a week by 25%. So fun letter to get. And next day, Paul A. Schmitt said to the managers, I herewith beg to tender you my resignation as manager. I don't consider your proposed cut in my salary as justifiable. So I'm out of here. Next day. So in the next 6 weeks, he went around and gathered up the equivalent of $80,000 in today's money. So $2,800, and bought all of the sheet music and the fixtures and everything pertaining to small goods and printed music at Century Piano, and started our company. So this is the official start date of our company, 11/16/1896. Pretty cool. So these are some of our logos over the years. This is our most recent one. And it's kind of fun. It takes a treble clef, puts it backwards, makes it an S, but it's on the music staff. Kind of fun. This one was fun. I remember we had one of our school service vans was a Volkswagen, and they took off the VW round logo in the front, put this on the front. That was kind of fun. That was old days before they had graphics. Okay, now I'm going to flip over to Rotary. What happened in 1905 for Rotary? Started up. That's when Paul Harris came up with Rotary. And I don't know if you know this story, but the reason they call it Rotary is that he was a lawyer in Chicago, and he was interested in meeting the other business people in his neighborhood. So he went around knocking on doors and said, hey, Brock, want to get together and join this little club, and we're going to rotate to our different businesses and learn about your business this week, and then go to Ross's and learn about his business and go around. So that's why we call Rotary. Kind of fun. Yes. So in 1910, what happened in Rotary? Okay, so Paul Harris came to Minneapolis and started our number 9 club, the 9th Rotary Club in the world. Pretty cool. What happened the next year? Paul A. Schmitt joined. A little dinky club, and thought it was cool enough to join. So that was pretty fun. So 113 years of Schmitt music and Rotary connections. So aren't I lucky? Aren't we lucky? Yeah, yeah. So this is Robert A. Schmitt, our 2nd generation president. And so like all the rest of us, we went to work in Dad's music store when we were growing up. And so he learned how to, do customer service, and met lots of piano teachers and other musicians coming into the store downtown. And lo and behold, one of the piano teachers, Margaret Hicks, he fell in love with and married. And so Margaret Hicks was a concert pianist, but she was teaching piano as a supplement to her work. And so they, started out in Minneapolis, and everything was great. And then our business wasn't big enough to support 2 families. So her father hustled them to come work at their wholesale grocery business in Spencer, Iowa. So takes a concert pianist trained at the New England Conservatory and brings her to Spencer, Iowa, which is a small town today. Imagine it back in 1890s, And so down they went. So, I don't know how many years it was. Paul A. Schmitt got deathly ill. And So Margaret Ellen Schmitt, his wife, called her two sons, Robert and what was his name? I'll think of it in a minute. And Walter, and said, who wants this music store? And in family business, going from the first to the second generation is the most difficult transition because the founder is the entrepreneur, it's their baby. Nobody can take care of your baby like you can, right? And so anyway, so Margaret Ellen Schmitt said, you know, Paul is deathly ill. Who wants this music store? So before she could finish the sentence, Margaret Hicks said, we'll take it. I want to get out of Spencer, Iowa. You know, I can't play or teach piano anywhere in Spencer, Iowa. Come on, let's do it. So she jumped in, and that's how we got to our second generation, which thank goodness. Aren't we lucky? Let's see. So fast forward to 1942, 125 days after Pearl Harbor, they got the itch to buy a new store. It's like, what? And so they stood at the corner of 10th and Marquette. And my grandpa said to my grandma, do you think we're too far out in the country? Seriously, that's a quote. And oh, okay, because you know, downtown was down where Dayton's was, you know, and so out there was taking kind of a risk. And so they decided to buy the building at 10th and Marquette and moved in. And because the war was raging, suddenly the supply lines all dried up, and Steinway was making airplane wings and so on and so forth. So they got creative, thought on their feet, went to Chicago, bought artwork, and they filled the building with artwork during the war to keep the doors open. This painting is the last painting from that period. We just did the great divide of all my mom's stuff when she passed away a few years ago, and our daughter Greta selected this. So she's got this hanging in her house. So it's pretty cool. Now, Margaret's husband, Pete, has come to Teddy and said, we want to buy that back from Greta. And Greta's like, what's the price? You know, that negotiation's still going on. So we'll see what happens. Yes. And so back to Margaret Schmitt. We had Margaret and Margaret. And believe it or not, Paul A. Schmidt's mother's name was Catherine. So you're Catherine number 2. All right. All right. So we had a publication business. And so since Margaret Schmitt was a pianist and interested in all that, she ran our publication business up to 1972. And what I remember her saying is it was just a frustration having both a retail store and a publishing business, because she'd have customers coming to her and saying, Margaret, I wrote this wonderful piece. And she'd look at it and say, that's not very wonderful. You know, and she'd take the risk of them getting mad at her and saying, we're never going to buy anything more from you because our piece is so wonderful, you know. So she had this conflict going on. So that's why in 1972, she decided, let's sell that off. So they sold it to Bellwin. And so all of our publications went there. But it was a fun period. Okay, and then Margaret Schmitt also in 1937 started our printed music clinic. So what happens in the music education business is the publishers go to the composers in their fleet and say, all right, we need to have a new beginning band piece or a new, you know, piano piece or a new whatever they want to have, because they know the demand is going to rise, because starting when school starts, everybody's kind of jumping back in. And so she decided, hey, let's make a clinic. Let's have something to showcase those new pieces. And so she started this thing, and it's grown, and over the years we still do it. The teachers come in and the publishers bring out their newest pieces, and we have people come in and play them, and they select what music they want to show to their new students. So it's kind of a cool thing. So Margaret Schmitt was a gal way before her time, because she raised 3 children, ran these big businesses for us, and just it was a great lady. In fact, when she was 88 years old, she played in our wedding, and looked like I stole a 10-year-old. My beautiful wife, Ellen, yay! Now this, 84. So now this is my father, Robert Schmitt. Do you think you brought the right baby home? I think you got the right guy. So Robert was our 3rd generation, and he expanded our business out of 1 store. So that was a big deal. And when Southdale opened in the late 50s, we jumped in and we started adding branch stores. And part of his reason was being lazy. He was saying, I don't want to work every night and weekend. So if you have multiple stores, now he can slip out the back and nobody will notice. So he liked to have a lot of fun. So one of his claims to fame was when they tore down the building next to our 10th Street store, it exposed a big ugly wall. And this is what Barbara Flanagan wrote in the Star Tribune. Bob Schmitt, he knows he owns an ugly wall on Marquette, and he is perplexed about what to do with it. How about painting some big and colorful music notes on that wall? Use the Rouser or the National Anthem or Downtown or Beethoven's Fifth. The point is, Mr. Schmitt, make that wall sing. Now remember when he woke up in the middle of the night one night when it struck him, hey, let's put sheet music on. And so he went and had our advertising manager, Jill Rivard, he said, go down into our printed music area and find a piece with as much copy on it as possible. I don't care what it is, but I want lots of ink. So this is Ravel's Gaspard de la Nuit, one of the hardest pieces. And funny story about this one, the publisher, Theodore Presser, called him on a copyright violation. I remember his secretary saying, I heard him laugh the guy off the phone, like, are you out of your mind? I put your piece of music on a building. Leave me alone, you turd. Yes, isn't that cool? There's some of the cool cars. 72. Now in Rotary, my dad was a fun-loving guy. And so we had 2 exchange students from Australia staying with us, Jeanette Morgan and Carrie Edwards. And so they were, just being students and having fun. And one day my dad, one of his best friends, Carl Plato, was going to be the Commodore of the Aquatennial. So my dad decided, let's poke a little fun at Carl. And so he said, hey girls, I'm going to put you in some of my mom's old like bridesmaid dresses, and we'll get you some tiaras and all this. And we're going to pretend that you are the visiting queens from Australia. And we're going to butt into the Aquatennial parade. And they did it. And so this was one of his managers who was a fun-loving guy, and they were having drinks one day, and he said, I'll drive, And this was my dad's 1966 Thunderbird convertible, and he loved Thunderbirds. And so they did it. And when they went by the judges stand, they got in trouble. They're like, we don't have you on this. And that was like 12 years ago. I ended up buying Carl Plato's old wood boat, and many of you have been on this fun old boat. And I showed him this picture because he was on his deathbed, unfortunately, and he had the most fun laughing at this, and it was just a fun memory. So fun Rotary history. So now this is my brother and me back in 1996, where we got into the Hall of Fame of the Music Inc. magazine, and several people that were on our executive team. And so this goes into our 5th generation. And so this is the first partnership in our family's history where we had 2 people from the same generation there. And Tom and I had a lot of fun growing our business into Iowa and Nebraska and Kansas and Missouri and Colorado. And so that's kind of been one of our things. We got through a nasty class action lawsuit, if any of you have ever gone through that fun. But we survived, but that was true grit. Anyway, so now we are going on to our 5th generation. But part of the fun I've had with Rotary is I got to be president back in was it 10? No, 5. And so that was the year of the centennial. And so we had a committee here led by Lois Sonstegard, one of our past presidents. And she grew the thing. So our mission was to get 1,000 Rotarians from our district and 5960 to go to Chicago together. And so one Rotarian is a member of an antique train club. There is such a thing. So he got this train, and beautiful train on the back of the train. We hooked it onto an Amtrak, and we had several cars that were all these classic beauties, and they put white linen tablecloths. So we just had a joyride down and back. And so you can see Gail Noakes and Joyce in there. And that was just a fun trip. And when we were down there, I got to lead a marching kazoo band right down Michigan Avenue for the Rotary Centennial Parade on stilts. And it's windy in Chicago, and I didn't think of that. So I'm up on stilts. After the parade, I was so exhausted. Ellen, I said, I'm going right to bed. I got to take a nap. All these foreign people were there for the parade. They wanted to have pictures and all. Yeah, I was just exhausted, and anyway, it was lots of fun. Then at the end of the parade, this cop gets mad at me and he starts to, and wants to arrest me, and so, what? You can't do that. That was a staged picture, believe it or not. And then in 2010, we had our 25th anniversary for COL. And a fun project I got to get involved with was a musical instrument playground that we put in right across the street from Leslie Earls. Raise your hand. She's the band director at Minneapolis Edison. So right across the street from there, we have our beautiful playground there. And so another fun side story on this is my son, Teddy, raise your hand. He went to school in Colorado, and when he was done, he said, hey, I'd like to stay out here a little bit longer. And the guy that invented these was in Durango, Colorado. So I connected the two of them, and he worked for that guy for 2 years. So that was kind of fun. So now, here we go. This is Peter, my nephew. That's Margaret's husband. He's at home getting their kids on the school bus. And this is Teddy. And this is a guy named Jerry Babcock. He's our VP of sales. So they got onto the Music Inc. magazine, passing the torch to the 5th generation. So it's kind of fun. Let's see. And this is Pete and Margaret and their 3 beautiful kids in front of our old store. And Pete is a violin luthier by trade, or luthier. That's the official name of a violin maker. He was a furniture builder before that. And so my brother said, hey, I think you should do that and go to the violin making school down in Red Wing. And so he has grown our orchestra business since then, because we used to treat orchestra like band, and that's a no-no, right, Leslie? Because orchestra instruments are fragile and need, what's that? Yeah, you don't want a orchestra, no. Anyway, so you'll see our beautiful violin shop in a few minutes. That's one of Pete's big things. And this is Teddy and Catherine. And they just got married out in Park City last September. So this is right in front of the ski hill, which is one of Catherine's favorite places because she grew up there and had lots of fun. Ellen and me, woohoo! So Ellen's been with me all the way through at Rotary and everything. And one of the fun stories is when our daughter Greta was just about to be born, Paul Botts, a former member of our club, was the party girl. And he organized a creative black tie party. And so I talked to Ellen into going, even though she was about 1 hour from giving birth. She was just out to here 2 days, yeah. And so I wore a clarinet as my black tie, and we duded up and went off to this thing. And then Greta got to come to my outstallation, and she was 10 years old. And she was so bothered by people giving her daddy a hard time. She went running across the room and jumped into my lap. It was the cutest thing. Anyway, so now she's a big girl and she's working in the mountain schools. That's it. Thank you. All right, so Ross and I are the timekeepers. And yes. Well, our time is a little tight, so I'm going to say at 8:30 when we need to go. If anybody wants to stay, I'll take questions or take you on a backstage tour further than we're going to go now. We're going to go see our 6 beautiful pro shops right now, and I have 6 hosts. Baker and Margaret and Catherine and Ellen and me, and who else am I forgetting? Teddy, wherever he went. And so you'll notice that we've got roughly 6 rows of chairs here, but we didn't fill them all up. So we're going to break into 6 groups. I was going to suggest we can just do these rows, and then whichever team is bigger than the other one, you can go join the 6th team. And then every 5 minutes or so, we're going to ring Ross and I can ring the bell and say, okay, time to rotate. We'll go on to the next one because we want to respect your time and be out of here by 8:30 for those that need to go. But yes, in some of the rooms, yes. Some of the rooms, no. You'll be the expert in the no rooms. Yes, yes. So, yes, I had them. Let's see. I went off my notes. Can you believe it? So, Ted, flute shop. Catherine, piano shop. Margaret, violin shop. Bob, sax shop. Ellen, clarinet shop. Doug, brass shop. So, you guys go with Bob. You guys go with Catherine. You guys go with Ellen. You go with, where did Teddy go? He's coming back. All right, so break into equal groups. That's an order. Oh, good. All right. So I'm going to brass. Oh, let's go to brass. Actually, let's go out this way because we'll get ahead of the crowd. This is the green room where the fancy people go to get dressed and play. Brass shop. Who wants to go to the brass shop? Brass shop. I'm gonna go out even further this way. Pianos go with Catherine. Brass, come with me. Go over here further because then the flute choppers can go in
I
here.
got the bell. The plate.
Brass shop. November.
Yes.
Yep. 12. This will be brass shop. Yep. So Margaret's going to violin shop. Brass shop. Bob, where are you going? Sax shop. All right. Sax shop. You're so naughty. You're so naughty. Yes. I've got fun stories about that I can tell you.
Doing Teddy, I think.
When you tell me your stories.
One person.
Sax shop, or I mean brass shop. Right?
I'm
Go
following
to the
Bob.
brass shop.
Is that all you have? Is this?
Can you believe it? Must be my new deodorant. Yeah. We'll take who we can get. Doesn't matter.
Wonderful.
This is their first. Why don't you tell them how the sex shop started?
Piano shop will do that. You can't be sucking off my crowd now. Come on. I had to work hard today. Hey, Keith.
Yeah.
How are you?
Very well. How
Good.
is everybody today?
Great. This is Dr. Keith Hilson. He is the director of sales of our low brass shop. So this shop is both low and high brass. So we have about 5 minutes. Go.
Got it. So, welcome to the brass shop. So I've been with I've been with Schmitt Music since 2014, and I've been in city since 2010. Did my master's and doctoral work in trauma performance at the University of Minnesota. And Schmitt, brought me on. I had a couple of colleagues who worked here and said, "When was trombone shop started? Do you think is this something you're interested in?" And I said, "Well, I might be. I'd never done music retail. I'd never worked in a store like this before, but I started and I really grew to love it. And when we started, really all of our individual shops, they were small spaces. I started off with my trombone shop basically being a closet with about 8 instruments in it. And over the years and through a lot of support of the Schmitt family and the company and obviously our musical community here, we've had the opportunity to create a space like this. So like you'll hear with all of our specialty shops, really the goal with all of these is to be a resource for our communities, whether it's on the very local level, I mean, serving our community right here, whether it's on a little bit wider regional level, and frankly, even on a national and international level. One of the things I love about what I get to do is I get to work with folks literally around the world. We're just helped a trombone customer in Spain with a very custom mouthpiece. I've got a message waiting in my inbox from a customer in Italy right now with asking about trombone questions. So really being able to serve our community, I mean, from very hyper local to literally worldwide is such a very, very cool thing. And again, when we created the space, we really wanted it to kind of reflect the experience we wanted our customers to have. So when we went through with the interior designers who did such a fantastic job of implementing the vision, they said, what do you want the space to feel like? And I said, picture like a concert hall full of light and air and energy, said, take us up to the rafters, give us a lot of room, because as brass players, we play large boisterous instruments. We want to have room to work with, right? And so we want to have a lot of space there. And again, really kind of spaces within the shop to really feature all of our instrument categories, whether it's our incredibly unique trumpet wall behind you, which we get inquiries all the time from other stores saying, hey, where can we buy that super cool trumpet wall? And we have to tell them, well, you have to have it custom built for you. Whether it's something like that, or obviously our horn customers there. Through our room on the side there, we have what we affectionately term our tuba euphonium library. So a space just for our tuba and euphonium folks. And then of course, my favorite place here, our trombone alcove here. I am a trombone player by trade. And so having a space like this really, to serve as not only a, space for people to come in and try out instruments and to get to experience, things they maybe would not be able to see otherwise. Again, in all of our spaces, part of the idea is that we have instruments and accessories. Basically, I say everything you would need from a very beginning student all the way up to a top-end professional. We want to have what they're looking for, and so having space to do that, but at the same time having the expertise behind every one of the shops there. So, for example, I have my trumpet colleague, Dr. Ben Elgin, who just joined us last year. He has his doctorate in trumpet performance from the University of Florida, an incredibly accomplished player, but somebody who really, he knows more about trumpets than I could ever hope to forget. I mean, it's amazing what he knows about this, and it's the same thing in every one of our categories, having the specialists behind all of this, and in a lot of ways too, really being able to have something like this sort of an event space, a performance space. We've hosted already since our opening in November. We've had a number of events that have happened in here. We can clear up the space and literally we can have performances in here. We had a whole day of tuba euphonium clinics happening in here. And again, just getting to serve our community. We just had a visit yesterday from probably the best known trombone player on YouTube, a gentleman by the name of Christopher Bell. He was going through the area and he called me up and said, hey, can I stop by the shop? It's something that's really getting notoriety in the best way possible in our community. And so, like I said, it's been incredibly fun to be a part of this process, but it's really all this is doing, the whole shop is doing, is just growing on what we've already been doing. The space doesn't make the shops. It's been the support that Schmitt and the company and the community have given us. This is just giving us a little bit better way to display all of the work that everybody has been putting in on it, which has been a lot of fun.
Questions?
Yes.
I was a trombone player when I was in fourth grade, probably got a used trombone, had dents in it and everything like that. And that's what I used all through college.
Yeah.
So the question I have, okay, they all look the same.
Yeah.
How can a professional tell the difference in trombones? What makes the difference?
What makes the difference? There's a lot of things that go into it. First off, we have our different levels of instruments. And again, same thing carries through in all of our categories. We have our student level instruments that are designed for younger players. They're designed to get somebody who doesn't have the same kind of air capacity, doesn't have the same type of control. They're built to be more accessible for them. Student instruments tend to be a little bit more robustly built because, young beginners, I know I certainly was very hard on my trombone as a young player. They're designed to play better in a smaller range. So they're really built with those folks in mind there. So part of the thing, as we start moving through these different levels, they're designed with different players in mind. And as a part of this here too, there's a different amount of handwork. The further we go up into our intermediate professional custom level instruments, there's more and more work spent on the instruments by less and less people who are better experienced. And then we get other stuff. So yeah, make sure that we get you back. I'd love to talk more.
Yeah.
That's an excellent question.
Where are the saxophones?
Saxophone, they are right next door here.
Where are you at?
Oh, we've got you all
That's
covered.
not considered a part of this. Thanks, Keith.
Absolutely.
They're still.
I think we're good right now.
They're not.
But because they need the voting. They have their own separate category.
Okay, all right.
Oh, yeah, please.
No mouthpiece.
Yeah, Keith can play it for you.
What in the world does the euphonium look like? I think that one of those is a double bell euphonium. That must be the one.
Yes.
Google.
Hey,
It's a wing.
You need one more wing, so then you'd be NBC.
Yeah, you need the.
Dum, dum, dum.
You start, you got 5 minutes. Go.
Sounds good. Well, welcome. So this is the saxophone shop. What shops have you, where would you?
Trombone.
Trombone.
There, crash.
We talked to Keith. Awesome. Well, saxophone shop, we started back in our Brooklyn center store. That was our first shop. And it was kind of the test of, hey, if we start having, beginner to all the way to the highest end professional stuff, is that going to work? Is there a demand for that? And I didn't start right at the beginning. My boss, Jerry Babcock, did, but I got in pretty early just because I walked in to get my horn fixed because right across the hall was a good repair shop. And it's like, oh, how do you work in that shop? So, probably about 6 months later I did, but yeah, the saxophone shop really proved there's a big need for that in the cities. You know, growing up here, I had to drive, you know, to get my horn, I drove down to Waterloo, Iowa, which is the closest shop at the time, Tenor Bandits, and they're world-renowned shop, and now we work with them actually. So we've gotten big enough that we've joined forces. And now we're getting into some really, really cool stuff. You know, like I said before, we start from the very beginner instruments all the way up to the highest end professionals will stop by when they're coming through town to see us. But we're working on our own saxes as well. So the saxes behind you there, Lake City Instruments, it's a project we've been working on for about 10 years, and they've gotten really good in the last few years. And now that we're working with that high-end saxophone tech, again, Randy Jones, who was our biggest competitor, he's doing some stuff to them where these are, you know, these compete with the highest end pro horns in the shop. So we're pretty excited. We're getting to the point where the stuff we're making is actually really good too. But yeah, that's, you know, that's the whole thing of the shops. You know, not only do we have all of this cool stuff, and you know, we have new horns, we have vintage horns, all that kind of stuff, but we have, as you'll meet, we have some pretty fun people working in all the shops. If you met Keith, he's humble about it, but maybe you outed him there, Doug. But Keith is like one of the best trombone players in town, and he's a great teacher, and you know, he has a YouTube following, so people know and want to work with Keith, and that's really fun. And you know, and here I was a saxophone guy. I'm still in here as much as I can because I like saxophone. But we've got Derek Nairn, we've got Zach Miller, we've got two working sax players in town. They're gigging a few nights a week at least. You're going to meet Dr. Rachel down in the flute gallery. We've got some really high-end players and teachers who can make this room make sense to a young player coming in. And that's a big part. Is it's very overwhelming. When I bought my first saxophone, I walked into a shop and the guitar player was like, try them all, let me know what you think. And I picked one and I hoped I picked right, and I didn't because I got something different years later. But here, you know, that's the big thing is, you know, when someone's saying, I'm getting ready for college, let's say, and we're going to help you find that college instrument for the music major, or just because you love playing, or a hobbyist or a pro, we have enough level of expertise in here where it's really fun. We set them up with something that's most likely their instrument for the rest of their life. And
How many different types of saxophones are there, like alto and baritone?
You know, the main ones are soprano, alto, tenor, and baritone, although we are ordering our first couple Lake City bass saxes, which is the real hard one. So we haven't gotten them yet, and we hope they're good. But yeah, we're going to have a couple of bass saxes. Then they do get into soprano above that for the higher, or, you know, and so there are, and there's some other weird rare ones. But yeah, in the room here, so we have some cool old vintage horns, but you know, really, these TM Customs here, this is becoming my coolest thing because Randy Jones, I mentioned his name before, he's basically one of the world's top saxophone techs. We're lucky he lives close enough in Iowa, but he's kind of a mad scientist. So he started making these probably about 16, 17 years ago, and just constantly changing them and innovating them. And you'll get them with a little sticker here saying, oh yeah, this one has a little heavier neck, and this one I did some tweaking. It's about as close, you know, there's not a fully American made saxophone in existence right now that stopped back in the late 60s. But this is as close as you get to States, sourcing some parts from some of these Taiwanese makers and just spending hours and hours and hours. And every time I get a frantic call from like, I figured out something new. So again, mad scientist is the best word. And just all these little tweaks and changes. And we work with them to, you know, we buy these in, we're partnering with them to have this be kind of our brand that he's working on. Probably the most handworked saxophone in the world.
Does it sound different? Like all of them have different sounds?
They really do. Saxophone's a very vocal instrument. So based on the saxophone and like the mouthpiece that you use, you can, you know, some of the big, loud, bright players, some of them, you know, kind of the soft, fluffy coffee shop jazz stuff. And so all of the equipment, it's a very personal thing because, you know, as a sax player, if I take this, it's the exact same setup and I play it and I hand it to another sax player, we're going to sound very different because, you know, we're physiologically different. So it, all of that affects it. So it really is, I always use that Harry Potter thing where you're picking the wand, you know, when someone comes in here, I don't tell them like, oh, that's the one for you. Oh, no. Very personal choice thing. So that's why the guidance is important on all these. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
Talk for about
Well, I've heard that it is mostly because of ergonomics.
Clarinet maybe is up there too, because they're fairly common.
They're all hard and they're all easy. Violins. This one you'll notice when you go in, there's humidity in there. And violins need humidity. So we have this separately humidified. Yeah, exactly. So as I said, my nephew Peter is a violin maker by trade, and I got to start my 5-minute timer.
Did he make them here?
We do make violins here. Yes, we've got a whole slew of luthiers. I think 7 luthiers work back there now.
Oh, wow.
So as I said, Peter was a furniture maker before he was a violin maker. So this countertop is a piece from his old shop. And it is walnut, and they call it live edge. So that's why it's got the kind of a rough looking edge, but that's cool. That's cool in that business. So there's more. There's one here. There's one back there. He also made all these cabinets. And as I said, you can feel the humidity in here because that's important to wood instruments. We used to treat violins like trumpets, and they would fall apart, and orchestra directors hated us. And so now thanks to Peter, we're working our way back into the orchestra business because saying that was just a bad period in our history, and now we're paying attention to them. Now, this, in my opinion, is one of the coolest instruments in here. This one was built in 1703, and it's a viola, and it's on consignment. And we got it in, and we gave it to Peter Bingen, our head luthier. And yeah, the scroll is a lion's head, which I guess was common back then. The makers would all compete to make the coolest carvings and whatnot. So that's kind of rare because most of the violin scrolls look like scrolls. So that's kind of fun. But he went through and fixed it up. And what that generally means is you put a new bridge on it. There's a sound post, which is a little tiny piece of wood inside that essentially is like a structural piece that connects the top and the bottom so it doesn't collapse. If you look in the sound holes, you can see just a little dowel in there. And it's in a very funky location, but that's the right spot to put it. I don't know if you can see in there. And they put on new strings and then anything else it might need. Sometimes the seams will come apart and they can put those back together, but he made it sing again. It's a 300-year-old instrument. And I had a Ken Freed, who some of you have met. He's a violist with the Minnesota Orchestra. He came in and played it. And his eyes just bugged out because it just has a deep body to it. So it really sings extra well. And anyway, it's just kind of a fun story to have.
So that's a real collector's item.
Yeah. But with violins, like lots of instruments, the older the better. You know, it's like Stradivarius, you know, they're still sought after. And so let's go back this way. And it's for sale. It's a consignment. So we have a cello room and a bass room, and we have that'll be our high end. That's a little high end room that we're not finished with yet. So this is what a luthier shop looks like. So they've got instruments torn apart, and he's making the instruments that are over there. We get instruments that come in from Taiwan, and they'll finish them here. He makes his own from scratch also.
What's the you use the term luthier? What's the heritage of that?
I don't know. I should know. Luthi, I don't know. I'm just guessing.
They're all
Yeah. They weren't Presbyterians. This is the rest of our violin shop. And so we've got, I think, 7 luthiers that work back here.
7.
Yeah, and under Peter's tutelage. And there's a guy named right here whose name is Martinos. He's also a maker. And so he's making instruments kind of alongside with Peter's help. And
are they independent?
no, they're employees.
They are employees.
Yep.
And everyone sounds a little different.
Yeah.
They're all unique.
Well, and it's the player's unique, the instruments, I mean, they're wood. And so, yeah, it's like a piano or a guitar. They all have a personality, but it's interesting that, you know, a design that's that old can still be so important, you know.
Yeah.
And they're beautiful.
Amazing you have 7 in full-time
Yeah.
employees.
Yeah.
Just in this one.
That's just out of this store. Yeah, we've got 12 stores. And so they're not all this big, but
Oh, and you have violin making at all the
No,
stores?
no, but we have repair people at all of them. So they'll have various abilities. If they can't do it, then they can pass it up the stream to here
Sure.
if it's something over their head.
Wow.
Kind of fun. So what else can I think of in here that's cool to talk about? Oh, I know.
Band versus orchestra, is that kind of a family thing?
It can be.
Makes heritage.
It can be. Here's kind of a fun feature of this. They put cello tuning pins as the door pulls. So that just fits right in there. Isn't that cool?
That is really cool.
But like in the brass shop, you may have noticed there's a whole series of mouthpieces in there. So with wind instruments, mouthpieces are the most important element. With a string instrument, the bows are very important. So they've got all these bows as options for people to try. So they can just go through and custom fit because all the instruments come without a bow. And so they'll go through and they'll find, they have wood ones, they have synthetic ones. I mean, you can have bows that are $50,000, it's just like, yeah.
50,000
For
for
the
bow?
bow.
Do most professionals have several bows?
Just like with mouthpieces with wind instruments, they'll have different ones for jazz and for
Because
classical and rock and roll and
sometimes whatever you call it, the moving, the flexible part will break.
the
during
stick.
concert.
Well, yeah, or the hairs will break,
The
or
hairs,
and the
okay.
weight of them is different. And the
Yeah.
frog, the part you hold on to, is different, and so very, very personal.
What's the most expensive item?
We have a Steinway that they're standing right in front of that's a little north of 300,000. That's a one of one. It's called the Twin Cities Skyline piano, and there's gold leaf etchings of all the arts buildings from the Twin Cities all around it. Yeah, and it's a player piano. So we'll see it. Yeah, the one of one. Yes.
Give them the hook.
You're done. Tell the redhead to be quiet. She's taking too much time. No texting and fluting, Tom. You ever seen a bass flute?
You been to the Steinway yet?
No. Should we go there? She's kicking us into Steinway. Fine. Keegan. There you are. Margaret's kicking us out. So everybody, this is Keegan Feller. He's our piano expert. Show us the cool stuff for 5 minutes. Or are you going to get a mic?
Oh, I'm getting a mic. How about that?
Come on in.
Yeah, that's kind of the direction we're heading, which is pretty cool. But this is the piece that I want to show you guys. Get everybody piled in. But this is a pretty cool piece. So this is what you're seeing here is Steinway's proprietary stereo technology. And this is it's a one-of-a-kind live capture, high-resolution player system. There's really no other system like this on the market right now. And I'm going to pause this for the moment. I'm finding it even on, so I have it on quiet play right now, which is pretty interesting. It's hard to drown out a 7-foot piano, I guess, as loudly as I talk, but I don't want to have to shout. So this piano can live capture any performance and then play it back exactly how it was performed. So what we were hearing when you came in, this is Christian Sands giving a performance of his composition Joy. And this was performed, I think, in 2018 or 2019.
So if you had a child that did a piano recital, you could record that to save it.
Exactly.
Back for their wedding.
Yep, exactly. Or grandma and grandpa, if grandma or grandpa plays, you can save it on the piano and it's something that you've got, save. Play a duet. Exactly. So it's pretty awesome. Just a short piece of the technology aspect, just to give you an idea of kind of what the system is doing. It can caption over 1,000 levels of dynamic from soft to loud. So there's a very large range. There's no other system that has that large of a range out there right now. There's 88 solenoids, one for each key. and it's going to track 800 times a second. It's capturing information and storing data from each key being played. So every little nuance is going to be captured.
A human can't outplay it.
Correct. A human cannot outplay it.
And one of the things they feature, sorry to interrupt.
Nope, you're
is,
fine.
Steinway has a roster of players they call Steinway artists.
Mhm.
And so Steinway controls all of their recordings and playings. So they feature Steinway artists on their library. So Vladimir Horowitz was Steinway artist. And so, so if you want to hear a piece played by him, this is as close as you're going to get because it's almost exactly like him playing. And so you could play a duet with him on the same piano.
Right.
Oh, my God.
Or if you had two of these, you could do a two piano forehand.
Yeah, whatever you want.
Just what everyone's doing.
Yeah, we can take care of that.
Yeah, so that's what each of the solenoids are doing. So when you press a key, it's going to capture that keystroke and then save that data. And then it'll reinitiate that data in the form of that solenoid operating. Yep,
Start playing.
exactly. So there's just a little record button.
So that the history of piano goes back to harpsichord, and harpsichords were before pianos, and they plucked the strings. If you get one volume only on a harpsichord. So piano, the real name is piano forte, because piano means soft, forte means loud. And so on a piano, because of this design, if I put it slowly, it's quiet. If I do this same key, it can get louder. And that was huge 300 years ago before he came up with us. And that's called dynamics in music, and that's a very important thing. But you can control that by yourself, touch. So when Steinway did that, they measured how fast that key goes down 1,000 times per stroke, and the pedals. So everything is as close to the real deal.
Yep, exactly.
What does the middle pedal do?
I got to remember.
That's the clutch.
Guilty sostenuto, yes. Guilty, I'm not a piano player. I play saxophone. But yeah, sostenuto pedal. So you can, yes.
I just remember one that just makes it longer sound.
Thank you.
And after you record, does it go to like pretty loud again? Or
So
is it-
Yeah, that's the new thing that's roll out is a stereo cloud. So you'll be able to store your compositions and your data to a cloud format. And then you can, so like, say I recorded something here and I store it to the cloud and say I have one of these at home.
Yeah.
I could go home and pull it out of my account at home.
Right.
And have it on that piano. So you don't have to bring a flash drive around with you.
So a quick lesson on sostenuto. It's used in about 2 pieces of music. And so what it means, you know, the sustain pedal.
Yeah, that's the only one I remember.
So sostenuto is you play a chord. Let's see. Now that'll sustain. So as I said, let's see. There we go. That's sustaining.
But I thought it was what's the difference between the other one? Because that one is.
Sustain pedal. Everything's sustaining. So if I just want that one chord to sustain, and the other one's not.
Oh,
Yeah.
I see.
It's
And the
red.
third one?
The third one is a soft pedal.
Yeah.
So if you look inside the piano, lots of the notes are played on 3 strings. So when you hit the top pedal, the whole keyboard shifts over, so it only plays on 2 strings. So it's softer. Yeah. H. Pretty cool. Yeah.
I wondered about that sostenuto pedal since I was 8 years old.
Yes, it's as I say, I hardly ever use, just like that Gaspar de la Nuit, hardly ever play it. You know.
I wonder how many little kids learned on the piano, like depending on the things on the car.
Yeah.
All right,
Thank
well,
you.
Yeah,
Yes, thank you.
yeah, of course.
What? Oh, good. Where were you gonna go? Sax, all right. So we either go to flute, we'll go to clarinet. Like random. Come on, let's go this way. right, this is a fancy piano. This is a one-of-one piano that Margaret helped design. She's a visual artist. And so when we were getting ready to move into this store, she contacted Steinway and had some drawings and whatnot of Twin Cities arts buildings. So this piano is called the Twin Cities Skyline piano. And if you look on the music desk, here are the skylines of Minneapolis and St. Paul. Now, this is a stereo also, but there's no power here and no screen here, so we can't show that part of it. But if you plug this in and had a TV nearby, you could do exactly what that one did. This is a 7-foot small concert grand, they call the Model B. Now, if you look inside the piano, it's got a silver plate, which is rare. Most plates are gold. It's just a aesthetic. And you look around the outside and you see the Lake Erie band shell and the sailboats. Yeah, and our wall and the Spoon Bridge and Northrop and the US Bank Stadium and Fauché and the Stone Arch Bridge. That's Orchestra Hall.
Oh.
State Capitol.
Walkthrough.
Yep. It's fun to see if you can spot them all. And you go around this side, here's the Wiseman. Yep, Spoon Bridge, or the Stone Arch Bridge. The Witch's Hat, kind of cool. St. Paul Cathedral. Let's see. That might be, is that Northrop?
I don't know.
I should know. St. Paul Cathedral, Como, Capitol, Ordway, I think, Landmark. I don't know what that bridge is. It's a St. Paul bridge. Might be. Is that might be the history, yep. So it is for sale, so if you want it, raise your hand. You can put your name on it.
Technology doesn't force you can put in any piano?
Well, only if you buy a Steinway, they build it at the factory. You can't add it later, no. Yep. Yep, the Steinway proprietary product. There are player piano systems that you can add to existing pianos, however. It's not the same as this. No, well, yeah, if you had a Steinway, but it wouldn't be a Spirio then. Spirio is only built at the factory new. Spirio is their brand of the player system. If you like buying a car that has the step-up model, it's a LS or something, you know, that's what it is. So let's see here. Been in there, we haven't been. We got to go on the flute. Let's just go on the flute shop anyway, because they're screwing me up. Nobody followed the rules.
Guys all started your timers at different times.
Yeah. So these are digital pianos, which are getting very good, by the way. So any pianist or piano teacher, I tell them once a year, you owe it yourself to come in and try them all and just see how they've changed. If you know what a Fender Rhodes is, it's a rock and roll instrument. That was one of the first electronic pianos. Doesn't sound at all like a piano. And they've evolved and gotten it so good that they're way better than an untuned piano that you might see in a regular house. But the nice things with them is they're lighter weight, so 2 normal adults can move them. You can play them with headphones, so if you want to play in the middle of the night and you have kids in the house or whatever, you don't wake anybody up. Or if a kid's taking lessons and practicing, you can have them right out in the middle and plug in and off they go. And then you get all the digital sides of it. You can get new sounds from the internet. You can record and send things over the internet. You can tune them. You don't have to tune them, but if you're playing with another instrument that's hard to tune, you can make it flatter or sharper if you want to. They're pretty amazing, and they're getting the touch better and better and better. I can show you. No. So this is one way they have tried to mimic an acoustic piano. Is they want it to feel like there's weight, so they've got this whole structure in there to give the same touch, because when a player plays, they want it to feel a certain way. And every year they get a little better, a little better, a little better. It's pretty cool. Some people thumb their nose, oh, if it's not a 9-foot Steinway, I don't want it. But they're legit. Now, one of the things, this is a hybrid, so it's got a wood soundboard with speakers in it. So the speakers create the sound, but the wood amplifies the sound. So it's a more natural tone than just out of a speaker.
There are no strings.
No strings. No strings attached.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah, this one. Okay. that is so small.
Yeah, so that looks like a itty bitty grand piano. This is also a hybrid with a wood soundboard. It's digital. So it's got a beautiful look. Sometimes people don't want to have a slab keyboard like the ones over there with an X-shaped portable stand in their living room because it doesn't look right. This looks a little more right. You know, if you had a condo downtown and with beautiful furniture, and that's a little design, you know, it's not.
It's a keyboard.
It's yes, it's essentially they call them a digital piano, but it's essentially a keyboard that, you know, you can play it with headphones and get all those high tech things. And, you know, the sound on them is really good. Let's see if I can figure out how to turn it on. There's power. Come on to life. Come on to life. Come on, give me sound. I'm too dumb. Fail. There we go. So that's the got. There's no additional speakers. That's just right out of it. And so they say it's difficult to get that digital sound because there's so many different sound variations, you know, digitally with that to that. That's all out of the same key, you know, and to have all those varieties. But as I say, every year they get better and better and better and better, and they're pretty legit. And as I say, when I go around myself and see acoustic pianos anywhere, rarely are they maintained well. That is better than an unmaintained acoustic piano, because you go sit down at one that's bad and it's so bad. But boy, when you get a good tuner technician on it and they voice them to you, like this Nachito Herrera, who's a Cuban artist, we voiced a Steinway for him that he ended up buying, and he's fallen in love with it so much that we renamed it Sandito, because that piano was originally bought right the day after Hurricane Sandy in New York, and then when we revoiced it for Nachito, we changed the name from Sandy to Sandito, and he won't let anybody even look at it. You know, it's like, that is my baby, get away from it, you know.
He's the one that performed for us.
Yes.
Several years.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the flute shop before we're done. Are we close?
Yeah, we're too old.
We're 2 over. If anybody needs to go, you can go. Good. Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah. Do you need to bring anything from there, or you need me to bring you anything from there? No, it's just tossable, right?
I'll follow up.
Okay. All right. Thanks. 8:30, go home. Let's go to flute. Well, I can tell you more about that. I know we're overtime, but we're going to take advantage.
Where are you gonna go for pianos this time?
Sure. We're overtime, but anybody needs.
2 extra minutes.
Yes, exactly. This is Dr. Rachel Haug. She is our flute director of sales and does a fabulous job. Is it on? Good. Go on. I was going to give it to you.
Oh, perfect. Hello. Can you hear me okay? Probably. All right. So
This is Dr. Rachel Haug. She's our flute director of sales.
hi, everyone. Welcome to the Flute Gallery. So hopefully you get jewelry store vibes as you're walking into this space. I think you've probably noticed at this point that every space has its own unique character, and the jewelry store vibes here are definitely intentional. So if everyone wants to come take a look here, we actually do deal in precious metals here. Everything from sterling silver to 9-karat rose gold to some platinum, and then there's engraving on some of those instruments as well. So really fun thing actually is that the flute industry has its origins in jewelry making. In fact, the people who put the keys on the flutes are called stringers, which is a jewelry term, like stringing pearls onto a necklace. So really cool overlap there, and especially because we do have the same materials that we're dealing with all the time. Now, all of these do vibrate differently, and they will vary from player to player for sure. So we actually have some really cool customization. So it looks beautiful in here. There's also functionality. I'm going to sneak in here, and if everyone can see, I think you'll love this. So these are head joints. So head joints, I would say, are responsible for about 80% of the sound and the tone that is produced on the flute. it's where the air hits first, so it really translates through the rest of the tube that way. So lots of different material combinations here with silver and different densities of silver. So we have sterling silver, we have Britannia silver, there's something called 998 silver, which is 99.8% solid silver, and then stabilized with platinum and other precious metals. So just really cool stuff. But one of the fun customizations, and I'll show you this, is the crown. So speaking of jewelry, crowns are something that have been in our industry for a while, but Haynes, our oldest American flute making company, recently launched a series of different options with 5 different gemstones, 4 different configurations for the domes. So these go on the end of the head joint. And what they're going to do is really impact that overall sound and response because you're changing the mass even further. So I'm going to have everyone actually feel this. So this is a silver crown with a 14 karat gold dome, an engraving, and an emerald.
That changes the sound.
It changes the sound. I know, right? So it changes it pretty dramatically though. And I'll have you feel actually this in comparison. So this is a lightweight option that doesn't have that gemstone or the engraving. So anytime we're changing the mass where that air is generating the vibration, it's going to change the sound.
And this goes in the.
It goes right here. So this
Oh,
part up
on the
here
end.
Oh, on
screws
the end.
off. Yep,
Oh, okay.
exactly. So you can compare those 2 ways.
So if I were coming in to buy one of
Yeah.
the flutes, you wouldn't sell it to me like that. You'd sell it to me and say, okay, now you also need a, what did you
Yeah,
call
the
it, a
crown. Yep.
So it's 3 pieces.
So
like
you
the
can
body, the
customize
this,
everything. Exactly. And it's very common when you get up to the custom level to actually choose a different head joint brand than the body is.
Oh.
So I, for example, have a flute body made by Brandon Brothers Flute Makers. They're a Boston-based company. And then my head joint is from La Fan, and that's a French company. And then I have a Haynes crown on the end of it. So
They operate so they all fit.
they do. I mean, you have to be careful because definitely the Japanese flutes have different measurements than our American flutes do. But for the most part, they do work pretty well together. Yeah.
Electronics.
I know. But I mean, we're very fortunate. We've got our master flute technician, Katie Lowry, who works in the shop over there. And actually custom fitting head joints is a complimentary service with any custom instrument purchase. So we just feel like you want to leave here with the best possible option. So, I mean, we've got everything from about $1,000 for your very first step up flute all the way up to $50,000, $60,000, just depending on how much custom work is going into it. And of course, the price of precious metals. So, yeah.
What makes a good flautist? I mean, as a student, a new, you say, well, this is what you want to be.
Yeah.
Play the flute.
I mean, I think first and foremost, you have to really love it. Yeah. You have to go in there knowing I love the sound of this and I want to play this. I think flute of any of the wind instruments is really the closest to the human voice, just because we don't have anything that's vibrating. We're not trying to vibrate a reed. We're not buzzing our lips to create that vibration. It is our air catching this outer edge of the head joint, and then it makes that vibration by coming inside the tube. So I think you really have to love how it sounds, or it's not the right thing for you. And that goes for any instrument, right? You have to love it.
Right. You're not blowing into a flute.
Right,
Yeah.
right, exactly.
Unfortunately, most 5th grade teachers know, well, I need a tuba player, so.
Right. Yes, I know. It happens that way sometimes, but hopefully we're getting better at letting people choose and then making sure. So one of my jobs is actually sometimes going out and helping students test their first instrument. So I'll do flute testing. And it's just really incredible to see when they get that first sound. Any sound is a good sound, but to see that look on their face is really priceless. So
Good, thank you.
yeah, you're very welcome.
Explaining your jewelry.
Absolutely,
I had
anytime.
no idea.
Maybe you know what it's Get one that you really love. Parting words. It's awesome. Parting words.
Thank you, Rotary. We love you. Here's to 100 more years. Cheers.